Welcome back. We got part two of our mystery doc. Hope you guys went back and listened to part one last week. We have a doctor who bought this practice in 2015. He's been growing it organically for the last 5 years now, got it up to 1.23 million. We talked a lot of last time about how he's feeling burnt out, how he's feeling lost, his mindset's kind of getting in his way. He's really just taking the path of least resistance in his practice and all his decisions. He's got in trouble with delegation. His leadership is not showing through with his employees. He's committed to getting an associate into the practice and growing it. So we talk a lot in this episode about the path to growing this office and come up with a real reflection about his office that I don't think he saw coming. So it's really cool to see. We have George here. It's 6 a.m. on Pacific time. George is a crazy person interviewing at this time, but here he is. How you doing, George?
With plenty of energy.
You're a crazy person, like I said. All right. Part two coming up. Hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you in the outro. We're back with our mystery doc, and we're ready to dive into a little practice by numbers metrics. You ready?
Let's do it.
Since it all starts and ends with you, we're going to start with you. So you mentioned on our last episode a little bit about your diagnosing and kind of feeling rushed and how that shows up in some of your treatment plan, treatment plan size, diagnosing comprehensively. And so I wanted to point out, if you go to the treatment acceptance provider tab, it's on the left, we're looking at the month of August. It shows your average treatment plan presented at 1210 and the average treatment plan accepted at 692. You're diagnosing something on 25% of people, and you did 10 fillings for every 1 crown. What do you notice in those numbers?
I mean, the fillings to crown ratio really jump out at me big time. Looking at that number, I can kind of see why at the end of the day, I'm pretty exhausted. Find doing fillings to be super tiring. Yeah, the diagnosis, I'm a little surprised that I only diagnose things on 25% of the patients.
Right, and we're just looking at 1 month. I look back a few months. It's a couple ticks higher. Most months are probably more around 30%.
Right.
But I will shed some light on where those numbers lie in the users of practice by numbers.
Okay.
So your average treatment plan size is in the 30th percentile. In this month, your diagnosis percentage of 25% is in the bottom 5%. And your filling to crown ratio is in the bottom 20%.
Okay.
So all of the kind of major numbers we're looking at, you are towards the bottom. So I think this is like a big area for you as far as, it doesn't even seem like you've come close to maximizing the treatment from your current patient population. And I think that's a little bit of a reflection of how you've set up your office, right? You got the 3 hygienists going, you're doing treatment in your other 1 or 2 columns. So I think a big issue for you is how are you going to design your office where you do have a little bit more time to spend with these hygiene patients and diagnose comprehensively? Or even if it isn't a time thing, how do you empower your staff to help you out to be able to get these things diagnosed without, making your doctor side schedule run way behind?
I think that's the crux of the issue.
Where is the low-hanging fruit when it comes to this, when it comes to diagnosing more comprehensively and presenting more treatment to patients?
Well, I think one thing that needs to happen immediately is, I will say I don't think I've ever truly calibrated my hygienists. So we're all on the same page as far as whatever our treatment plan philosophy is for our office, like how this falls into what needs a filling, what needs a crown, what we should be looking at grafting, should we be talking about the occlusal guards. It kind of differs amongst all 3 of my hygienists. When I go to each room, sometimes things have been brought up, sometimes they haven't. So it's always kind of this song and dance. Sometimes I've got time to talk about what I want to do and what's ideal. And sometimes I'm just looking to put out fires. The low-hanging fruit first would be to do a lot of calibrating with my hygiene team. So that way, when I do walk into the room, I'm pushing that boulder over the top of the hill where they've kind of teed it up for me. So I think that would be probably a place to start. I've also toyed with the idea of maybe cutting back my clinical days to 3 days a week and then 1 day just doing hygiene exams and maybe having one of my hygienists do like assisted hygiene that day. So just have like a super heavy hygiene day and all I would be doing that day would be doing exams. And that would just kind of get me in the mindset of every time I go in and do an exam, I just wouldn't have to worry about falling behind anywhere else. But I think the lowest hanging fruit would be starting by calibrating my hygiene team.
Yeah, and I think once you do that calibration and there's a lot more co-diagnosis going on, you won't think you need to cut back your clinical days to 3 days. That would be my estimation. Because selling something to a patient after the hygienist already talked it up, already taken a picture of it, already showed it to them, talked about the consequences of not doing anything, is infinitely easier than you having to sell the whole thing. Do they take any intraoral photos? Are they talking to patients about treatment?
So yeah, intraoral photos rarely happen. If they do, I'm the one taking it.
That can't happen.
Yeah, and then as far as talking to patients about treatment, one of my hygienists really does not really talk about treatment at all. One of my hygienists talks about treatment quite a bit, and then one of my hygienists is fairly young, and I think she's still trying to figure out what her philosophy is. So yeah, they're like I said, they're kind of all over the board. So I think by calibrating them and kind of just going over expectations and would just be a great place to start.
Yeah, getting them all on the same board, and because at the end of the day, they're supposed to be calibrated to your diagnosis. Ultimately, it's going to be your call at the end of the day. So even the one who's the newer one needs to kind of know what you would do in each situation, so she knows what to recommend herself. So what could you do with that end in mind to get them all on the same board?
I just think carving out some time and sitting down and just like literally just looking at pictures of teeth and arches and just sitting down, almost just doing just treatment planning. And then, kind of looking, if we had the numbers in front of us and just saying, hey, look, this is where we're at. Making sure also that we just all have the same philosophy on what we think is right and not right. What the consequences of not doing what we believe is right. The benefits for the patient. I think if we can all agree on that, and then, maybe setting up a time, maybe it's 2 weeks or a month later, just so we get some of the data and then just kind of see where we're at today and where we're at a month from now. And, are we ticking in the right direction?
So how long would you need for that first meeting?
I don't know, probably an hour.
Okay. And when do you want to have that meeting?
That meeting, I don't know, as early as next week.
Okay. So by the end of next week, you'll have the meeting with the hygienist. And then check in a couple weeks later to see how you're doing.
Right.
Do you, a side question, do you use any of the numbers tracking softwares?
I actually have Dental Intel. Not using it a ton. I found, and I've had some pretty obvious discrepancies with them that kind of lost a little bit of faith in the software. So I used to use it quite a bit. Well, by quite a bit, I would check it like once a week. And this is another thing. It was just always kind of like, they have this thing where like, if you're moving in the good direction, you see a green arrow, and the arrows were always green. And I wasn't really like diving into the numbers. So that was kind of getting back to a mindset thing. I was just, and when it came to the numbers, I was just like, oh, well, I'm moving up and I'm not really paying attention to it. So I kind of just stopped looking at it after a while because it was just kind of organically going up and I wasn't really changing anything personally. So, but now I'm kind of getting to that point where I just foresee that if I don't do something, I'm going to plateau. And so now I'm much more committed to looking, to really paying attention to this kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's green, it's going up. That's all good. Perfect. Good. CPA, don't change a thing. You're good, man. So you have that in place. So you are able to track, how this improves over time then.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, good. If only there was a software that was cheaper and better run.
Yeah. I just,
Hypothetical.
I can't, it can't possibly exist out there, could it?
No, it could not possibly. Okay, well, I like that. I think that is a big part. What do you think about on your doctor's side, um, as far as being able to delegate some things that would make the procedures go a little quicker, smoother, so you could spend more time with the hygienist?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, there's certainly some room for improvement there. Just thinking about things that I can delegate. I mean, my assistants make my provisional crowns. There's not, I'm just trying to think of other things I could delegate during the procedure. But yeah, I'm sure there's probably some things that some inefficiencies in the way that I'm scheduled that I can improve upon.
So you have two full-time assistants, correct?
Correct.
And they're always with you doing the work back there?
They are, yeah. I will, yeah, they're back there. I will have them float through hygiene throughout the day as well to help them with their charting. But for all intents and purposes, yeah, they're pretty much with me. But
and are you scheduling out of one column or two columns? Or how is your schedule going?
So it's a little, I don't want to say haphazard, but it's not. It's basically like 1.5 columns. Like it's not sequenced like perfectly. Like you'll see like when you go to Breakaway and they show this like perfect schedule that looks like Tetris, where you have like assistant time, doctor time, assistant time, doctor time. Like we don't do that. We just kind of book out of one column. I have, the girls up front know how long it takes me to do things, and they'll book it out of one column. And then what they'll do is they'll, as we inevitably get emergencies, those broken teeth that I probably should have crowned, they'll call and have a broken tooth, and then they'll put them in, where they know I have time to see them, to kind of evaluate, do a build up or whatever it is till I can get them back. So that's kind of how it works. It's usually one column is like an overflow emergency column, and then I have my one productive column.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't think that's something that necessarily needs to change if you don't want it to. I think once you're empowering these hygienists, you'll find that these exams go a lot quicker. You will feel less rushed, and you'll still be diagnosing a lot more than you currently are.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll quit rag on you for a second. Let's talk about a couple things you're doing really well. So, I mean, you alluded to it when you discussed this practice earlier, that it's a very stable practice, and that I think that's a lot of what I'm seeing out of the numbers are that it's very stable. You very much have maximized your recall. You have hygiene pre-appointment well above 95%, which is at the top of practice by numbers users. Your patients who are on time with their recall is about 80%. Again, that's well at the top of all the users here. You only have about 15% overdue for recall. Again, excellent. So your ability to keep your loyal patients coming back regularly is one of the main reasons this is just on paper and everything you said, such a stable practice.
Yeah, it's like a hygiene cauldron. It's just, I just feel like, when the risk is fairly low because there's just always stuff to do. And there's so many hygiene patients.
Yeah. So you're at about 1950 active patients according to the software. Just for comparison, my practice is 1350. So you're working, a lot harder than I am. Excellent. So I want to talk about a little bit about your marketing and your new patients. So as you mentioned in your email to me, that you don't do any, you don't have a marketing campaign. You're seeing about just under 20 new patients a month. My guess would be that a lot of that's organic or insurance or, word of mouth type of growth.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about your plans for marketing and what you're currently doing.
So we average, I think between 20, 25 patients a month. It's basically all organic, internal marketing, word of mouth, Google reviews. We've got more Google reviews than anybody in the area. We don't get too many people that come to us, or at least say they don't come to us because of insurance. We participate with 3 companies, all of which have 2 of them pretty darn good reimbursements. One of them is so-so. So that's kind of really, we haven't really done much of anything other than just, some review software. Just recently though, I work with legwork for a website and reminders and things like that. And I've just, within the past month, started to use them for Google AdWords and some Facebook stuff. So I have not had a chance to review, and I know it takes a few months to really kind of pick up and kind of get an accurate idea of where we're at, but I don't really know exactly how effective that's been so far. But when new patients come to see us, a lot of them they found us online or on Google. So whether they're finding us because of the reviews or the Google AdWords is still kind of up for debate. But we're not really doing any targeted marketing towards any particular kind of patient right now. So I think I mentioned in my email that within the past few months, started to do implant surgeries in the office and becoming more comfortable with that. So, I don't know if I'm at the point where I really want to market really heavily towards that, because I'm still doing a lot of green light cases, and I would hate to have all these people come in with complex cases that I can't treat. So I don't want to market towards things that I'm not totally comfortable with yet. So that's kind of where we're at. I love, I really like seeing emergency patients because I love surgery, and I like the fact that when people are, in pain and I get them out of pain, I do find that really rewarding. I love it when I can take somebody who is just terrified of the dentist or doesn't want to go to the dentist and kind of turn them into somebody who will come in and see us. Just unfortunately though, those patients are some of them are just, unfortunately, they're just never going to really turn the corner. So sometimes it's kind of a bust, but so that's kind of where we're at with marketing. We're not really doing a heck of a whole lot.
Yeah. You got a little bit of the the best kept secret in town thing going on. You're, and I want to point out one thing on the numbers. So you're net losing patients every year and every month. So last year you lost 360 patients and you only gained back 219 new patients. Mm-hmm. So you're losing about 30 patients a month. And with your goals to grow the office to the point of bringing on an associate and being ready for that, you need to greatly increase those new patient numbers. Mm-hmm. This is a severe hindrance on where you want to go. We already talked about maximizing treatment on the patients you already have. The other huge part of that the numbers point out to is growing the patient pool. So I see a much bigger focus on marketing. If this is something you really want, I see that for you.
Okay.
Before we get back to the episode, I wanted to take a minute and thank Practice by Numbers. Without their help and allowing us to set up the shared practices dashboard, a lot of what we do on Practice Underwater wouldn't be possible. I want to take a minute and highlight a clip from the episode that we did with Rohit, where we highlighted some of the metrics that really matter most.
You cannot look at them just by themselves. You have to look at a few other things together with it. But the most important number any practice right off the bat should look at is patient acceptance. And the difference between treatment acceptance and patient acceptance is treatment acceptance is the amount of dollars that were accepted. For example, if you presented $100,000 worth of treatment, how much of that has been accepted, meaning scheduled or completed? Okay. So in this particular example, if 100,000 was presented, 55,000 was accepted, or either scheduled or completed. But the second part is 72%, which is the patient acceptance. What this means is that if you presented $100,000 worth of treatment to 100 patients, meaning $1,000 per patient, 72 of those patients scheduled some aspect of that treatment. Looking at patient acceptance is the absolute best way to go.
I hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you guys are interested in trying out Practice by Numbers and looking at your practice through the Shared Practices dashboard, and there are many other dashboards, you can go to practicebynumbers.com and set up a free trial.
So what with that in mind, and if that's something you're open to, what do you think are avenues that you could look towards to, put more of an investment into marketing?
To be honest with you, I know that it is so market specific. What works in one town will not work somewhere else. And depending on what, I don't even know where to start. You could always, I think grassroots marketing and stuff is always a good idea. I mean, I think kind of having a little bit in every bucket and then figuring out where your maximum ROI is and then kind of overloading there, but then still being kind of weighted everywhere else is probably not a bad approach. But, when I see these practices getting 60, 80, 100 new patients a month, it's a little mind boggling to me. But then again, I mean, I'm in an area that's not, it's kind of a double-edged sword because it's a pretty like provincial area, kind of a mom and pop area. And the nice thing is the people here, they're very loyal. They'll stick around. We don't have a lot of transient people. There's nobody really moving here. That's obviously not a good thing for new patient numbers. So, I don't know how in a town like mine, you would really get that many new patients a month without advertising for like emergency patients. Like, I feel like you kind of have to be going after patients who don't have a dentist. And those patients tend to be the ones that have emergencies or, are just really terrified. And I mean, I'm not super interested in doing sedation. So I think that's not really something at this point I want to be getting into. So I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it just seems like it's like a couple other things at your office. It's like you're trying to figure it out before getting into it. When you're kind of shutting down the possibility of delegating to people who do know how to market in a certain area. So I see for you, vetting out, asking for recommendations, seeking out a full service marketing company that will take you on as their client and kind of give you a lot of guidance on where to go. And most importantly, keep a lot of this off your plate. Mm-hmm. So if that's something that you're really focusing on at the end of the day, you're just taking advice from them and, helping in whatever way they need you to implement what they recommend.
Right. Yeah, I'm just a little gun shy. I don't know. I don't really know how to vet these companies, especially when it comes to marketing. It seems like a lot of smoke and mirrors, and I think I'm just really nervous about throwing a bunch of money at a company who ultimately, I don't want to say it doesn't have my best interest in mind. I mean, obviously, if they're working for me, they want to see some results, but yeah, I don't know. I've just heard a lot of. I don't know. I'm a little, like I said, I'm a little wary about doing that. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I just don't really know where to start in vetting a company like that.
Yeah. And, off air, I can give you some people I like, but anyways, it's about your commitment to where you want this office to go. Like you won't be ready for an associate without more new patients. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you're willing or able, or you have the knowledge to really learn marketing yourself. And even if you do, it might take you a long time as far as what works in your market, that I really see bringing someone in to help. Mm-hmm. And how you find that, I mean, like I said, going through vetting and asking around and, having phone interviews and talking with different companies and seeing what works. And I would like to believe that one of them will resonate with you and you can see the benefit in it for yourself.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, in an overarching thing, those are the two biggest things I see with the metrics and with talking to you about this practice is maximizing the patients you already have that are extremely loyal and that are coming back every 6 months. And then the other side of it is the growing the office and, combating the patients that are leaving the practice, based on whatever factors, relocating, passing away, whatever it is. Those are the kind of, if you had to take away anything, I would take away those kind of two areas to look at.
Okay.
A little bit more on the less urgent side, we'll look at your hygiene performance. So as you mentioned, you got the three full-time hygienists going. All of the numbers, I would say, are very average as far as their hourly production, the amount of perio they see, the amount of fluoride they're able to sell, all right around 50% of practice by number of users. One spot that they're really killing it, as we mentioned before, is the pre-appointment rate.
Mm-hmm.
All of that well over 90, super good job at that. But what do you think as far as maximizing your hygiene a little bit more and avenues you could look at to make that happen?
Having a really firm perio protocol would be an excellent place to start. My hygienists they're all very good. You could probably tell which one, but she's got the lowest perio and fluoride. And she's the one that just all the patients love. And she's just, she just wants to be everybody's best friend. I've had a struggle with her trying to get her kind of up to speed on that. Getting a firm perio protocol in place would be probably where the lowest hanging fruit. And then once again, just like we did with the diagnostic percentage and stuff coming out of hygiene for the doctor's column, also kind of circling back around to the perio numbers to see where those are at 2 weeks later or a month later, whatever we decided on, and just to kind of slowly start ticking in the right direction.
So how would you put into place something that's like a bit of a, treatment planning change as far as the perio goes to someone in that mindset of, I want to be this patient's best friend. I want them to like me. And I'm kind of, afraid to offer something that they may not want. Like, how do you get that person to change?
Well, I think ultimately they just have to believe and understand that, the care that these patients are getting is not, if they want to be this patient's best friend, they should also be looking out for their health. And, doing a bloody prophy, you might be saving the patient a little bit of money, but, not only is the hygienist working their tail off they're all compensated a percentage of production. So they are motivated they should be motivated to at least produce, ethically. But yeah, I think, turning it around on them and saying, look, if we're just doing bloody prophies, we're not doing anybody a service. The patient's not getting served by it. You're not getting served by it. So, it's there's no shame in that. And then I think it's at that point is if they can get over that hurdle, then it's just working on the verbiage and how it gets brought up and doing it enough time, getting enough reps in that it just starts to roll off their tongue. I think if we can do those two things, I think we should be able to get those numbers up.
And what is it going to take out of you as a leader to make that change in them?
Just seeing it through and auditing them and meeting regularly and all the things I'm terrible at doing.
I was going to say, you mentioned your accountability is one of your weakest points.
Right.
So, how is this going to be any different?
Well, the fact that I've committed to looking at these numbers and getting on this call is a good step. So,
but I know as some things go, it's like you're all fired up. Like say you go to like a really good dental CE. You come back Monday morning, you got the breakaway binder, you're ready to go. I got all my list of things I want to do. And then, you're into it for a week and then it kind of trails off. So what is it about some of these changes you want to make that are going to make them stick as far as your diligence?
It's a good question. I think like anything in life, it's got to become a habit and you have to do it X number of times to really kind of make it stick. So, I think, obviously having somebody to hold me accountable is never a bad place to start either. So
I was just writing down the question, who's holding you accountable?
Right. Yeah. Where's your mind?
You can answer that question. Who is going to be holding you accountable?
Like I said, it's probably a situation where I've got to, like I said, I don't need a consultant. I think I just really need a coach. I need somebody that's just that I can talk to, who's gonna really, hold my feet to the fire.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference with consulting and coaching. You kind of alluded to it. Is as a coach, I don't strive to have all the answers. I think in most cases the answers are in the client. I said earlier in this call. I mean, you have all the answers in you. It's just about talking through with someone that it's able to get brought out into the light, and then you have more of that commitment, versus just like, I want to get an associate. But no, now it's like a higher commitment to what you declared that you were going to produce, and it becomes more real, and you become, you're able to stick with a lot more. Excellent. Anything else in the numbers that jumped out at you? Any of the questions you had from looking at these?
Well, no, I was a little shocked. I didn't realize. I don't see the. I was a little shocked how many patients we were losing. Because if we were losing, I don't know. I guess if we were losing 300 patients a year, I mean, the practice would be like decimated by year 5. So I don't know. I guess I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, and I hope that realization just kind of lights a fire on you.
For sure.
Like we said, it's not like you're net losing 300 patients, but those are 300 people that are, for whatever reason.
Wait, so is that I'm losing 300 net, or 300? I'm getting 200 and something, and I'm losing 300. So I'm like net losing like 50 to 100.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Sorry. I misunderstood that.
Yeah. So that's why.
But either way, it's taking in a downward direction. So it's not nothing to be proud of, especially if my end goal is to grow the practice and bring on an associate.
Right. And that's something like with having the software, like a net loss of 75 patients a year, you probably wouldn't notice. It would take years for you to actually say, hey, it's, getting a little light on schedule. But with this knowledge so far on the forefront, you're able to see what's going on and decide if you want to make any changes to combat it. The AR looks a little out of whack. I don't know if it could be some of your in-house payment plans. I don't know if you guys do, as far as like the 90-day up over 30,000. Are you guys offering any of those? Why that number could be a lot?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit why it's out of whack. We do quite a bit of more than I want to. We do a little bit more than I want to. We'll spread payments out over 3 to 4 months for some things. So, especially same day treatment, like, my philosophy is like, I'm going to bring somebody over same day. I'm going to just try to make it insanely convenient for them, almost like too good to say no. And then when it comes to working out the financial details, a lot of times my front desk will do it over, like, split a crown up over like 3 to 4 months. And so I think a lot of that 90-day AR is kind of sitting in there. And we do have some past due accounts that are just kind of hanging out in space that I haven't sent to collections. So I think that's where that number comes from.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing wrong with operating like that. I think I wish there was like a separate AR that didn't take into account those payment plans. It's probably a way to do that.
Yeah, it'd be a good way to. I'm sure there's a way to separate it out in the practice management software. I just don't know if you can do it so much in this the metric software.
Yeah. Well, I want to circle back to what I originally asked you wanted to get out of this call, and if we accomplish that.
Yeah, no, I think it was, the answer is yes, for sure. I didn't see it going in the direction of my new patient flow, which I probably should have realized that. Like, I knew that my new patient numbers weren't like astronomical, and I knew that I didn't expect them to be, considering I'm doing like literally no marketing. But I didn't realize that the practice was actually declining. So that was a huge, huge shocker to me. I think that's going to be I don't know. I mean, if I'm going to outsource it, it shouldn't be the tougher thing to increase. But in my mind, I feel like that's maybe just because it's out of my control a little bit. If I outsource it, I just, getting those new patient numbers up is, yeah, I don't know, that seems like a huge hill to climb for some reason for me. And I don't really know why.
It's funny that you say that, because I think I said you're a great leader, and I mean that. But one of your shortcomings as a leader is the need to control things, and allowing yourself to let go of some of the stuff, like the marketing, like diagnosing with hygiene, is going to just break open a whole new level of leadership in you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I knew that one of the pain points was my diagnosis out of hygiene. Like, I just knew, I could have told you that, but I think looking at the numbers and seeing, like, just kind of knowing where I sit in relation to other practices, and like I know I'm an above average dentist, so I should not be putting up below average numbers for stuff like that. Even though I'm an above average practice, it's like above average practice, below average doctor numbers out of, stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know where. Yeah. So it's just kind of funny how all that stuff kind of adds up.
Yeah. And you're at such a great jumping off point. You have the stable practice. You got 3 full-time hygienists. You're getting the 20 new patients just from, your practice being awesome and having great Google reviews and a good website and word of mouth. You're at a great, stable place to do really whatever you want with it. Mm-hmm. If, having the associate is what you want, and it seems like it is, then growing the office, there's a very clear path to doing that. And it will take commitment out of you. And it'll take you declaring to up your leadership game. But there's just absolutely no reason both of those things can't happen. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to see. I really appreciate you coming on, because like I said, it's a unique practice for our show in that it's several years along, and it's a doctor with, it's someone who's grown the office organically and brought a lot of good things to this office. And now seeing someone who's in that position that a lot of people would think is, good, you're done, don't make changes, but now actually committing to wanting more is very cool to see. So I want to thank you for coming on, sharing that with this audience. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed part 2. George is back. He's got another list of thoughts for us. George, take it away.
Matt, you make me sound like that's all I got as a list. I mean, I had a reaction to this episode, because it very much is the path in which my practice is on, is very much the path in which this guy wants to get his office. A lot of the stuff that he wants to do, I've sort of been there, done that. 2 things really, really stuck out to me: leadership and that fear of risk, mainly fear of failure. Those were like so loud to me that I just wanted to shake him and just like, dude, especially with the fear of failure. It seems like he reached out for the comfort of in his metrics, so that he could say, like, when this reappointment rate is this amount, and when this is this, and then is that, then I can hire my associate, and everything.
He said in the email that he was looking for specific numbers that will make him believe he's ready for an associate.
Yeah. And it seems like that comes from, like, so then that, like, mindset stuff is, well, why is he doing that? And it goes back to that fear of failure, and a lot of stuff he always says, it's just not going to work for me. Like high new patient flow, just not going to work in my office, not in my area. My area is stable. Or, and it's funny because I look at those areas that are stable, like rural, they get the highest new patient flow out of anyone. Like it's like 300 new patients a month is not possible in the metro area. Like, but you go down to these areas, they're like 150, 200 new patients a month are possible in those types of rural areas because they have big draws. So honestly, I disagreed quite a bit with that, but it just seems like every time we kind of talked about the associates, like, oh, he maybe just doesn't work for my patients. But then he talks about his patients being blue collar. So like you kind of don't really realize why that wouldn't work. But it feels like he wants to, before he pulls the trigger, knows he's going to hit a bullseye. And it's just not going to happen. Like that's not real life. Like I don't care how good of a coach you have or how much metrics you study. I mean, that's like all I do. And I miss big time a lot of the time. And, like I had this experience of, just a lot of times just saying like metrics are telling me this, schedule is telling me this, everything is telling me to make this decision, and I make it and then I get floored, and that's just part of it. Like if you're not willing to accept that risk and take those risks, and I guess it's something that I'm passionate about because I feel like my whole practice to date has been taking risks and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't and adjusting and moving. And, that's something that I've just like, probably it's difficult on me to do that, but that's what my vision requires. And so I do it. But at the end of the day, like hearing him say that he's not, he didn't say it like blatantly, but what he's essentially saying is I'm unwilling to risk failure. And that inability to be okay failing is not going to allow him to get to his goals.
Right. And that's the value of having a coach is the coach is going to hear things that you're not saying, but that are really going on. We call that the context. It's what the subconscious is, what his mindset is. It's what he's really saying without saying it and what he's showing to us. And I think we talked about it a little bit as far as like he has a couple paths he could go on. He could be the productive solo office and not have to take these risks. But that's not what he said he wanted. He said he wanted to grow the office to have an associate. So with that end in mind, he's going to be having to invest and take risks and try things. And it's going to be cool to see whether he truly is willing to do all that.
It's like if you're going to fight a war, you have to be willing to lose a few battles. And he's trying to fight this war of growing his office into something it's totally not. And like living his dream and winning that war, like the big battle, and sitting there one day with the practice of his dreams. But you have to lose a few along the way to get there. And it seems like he's just at this moment unwilling to. And I think part of the reason is because failure would be a reflection on himself. It seems like throughout the whole part one and part two, anytime something is a negative reflection on himself, he runs away from it, whether it's diagnosing something that a patient might not say yes to, or telling a staff member something that they might not want to hear, or taking a risk that might not work out. It's always a reflection on this doctor. And the reality is that's not the way it works. I mean, failure can just be failure, and it can be a learning experience and not a reflection of who you are. But I think that mindset shift needs to happen, where he needs to just acknowledge the fact that, hey, I'm going to fail, and that's okay. Like failure is okay. It's part of the process. It hasn't been normalized for him. Like failure is not normal. It's very abnormal and is a big problem because everything in his life, probably in his ownership, has been so successful. Just slow organic growth. I haven't done anything, like so easy. I make a lot of money. Everyone loves me, and so like messing with that is going to be difficult for him.
For sure. And George, we also have to bring up the CPA stuff because that almost broke my brain. And I know you feel strongly about it like I do. So yeah, get into that a little.
I think we both are very anti-CPA telling me what to do. Like if you were to look at my practice on paper, you'd think I'm like an idiot. Maybe there's some stuff I do that's idiotic. They don't know the whole picture. They don't know the vision. They don't know the plan. All they know are what are your overhead percentages versus other practices' overhead percentages. And what am I going to tell you to do? Like in general, marketing people giving practice management advice. I heard a marketing guy tell me, this is not a joke. I don't understand why you would ever reappoint your patient for their 6-month recall visit, because you don't know if they're going to show up. And then you can't fit in new patients because you have all these existing patients filling the schedule. And I was just, like, dude, that's so idiot. That's so dumb. And it's just, just stay in your lane. If this guy's saying he wants a group practice and you're saying he makes a lot of money, why is that a relevant response? He's saying he wants a group practice because it'll make him happy. It's not about money.
Purely looking at what's on paper and comparing it to other hundreds of practices and saying, oh, well, he's in the top percentage and his supplies numbers and his overhead and all this stuff. So they're on paper about it. And there's just no thought to, every other aspect of running a practice.
Yeah. And so when you have professionals in your team, you say, what is their expertise? and keep them in that box. Your CPA's expertise is your bookkeeping, like knowing which expenses go where, and your tax advice. Like anything outside of that box is them venturing into an area where they're not qualified. Try to keep it that way. Same with your marketing guy. Like they shouldn't be telling me how to run my practice. That's not their job, especially not hygiene reappointment. Like that's so out of bounds.
Completely out of bounds. All right. Any other thoughts you had on part 2?
Yeah. So this resonated with me on the leadership perspective as well. So we disagreed on this, and I kind of want us to argue on air because I enjoy that. But so leadership, kind of take me through. I did not feel like this guy was exhibiting great leadership. I don't think he's being a great leader in the office at all. Like I don't want to say a bad leader, but I think he's like a very typical meh dental office owner leadership style.
Yeah, I think, and I do agree with that. And maybe I missaid it when I said in the interview. He hasn't shown strong leadership in the practice, and he even mentions that having the interview with the staff member who reflected that and basically asked him for more leadership, which is incredible. I love it. But I see it in him. Like I don't know, something about his whole demeanor tells me that I know he has good leadership in him. He's just got so much blockage towards letting that out. And I hope this was like the first step in kind of really putting some of that down, putting some of that, what we talked about, the fear of failure, the fear of risking, just putting that aside and allowing his true essence to show through. I really hope he's able to do that. I hope he is able to find some accountability structures that's going to help him with that, because it's going to be tough just to hear it one time and to totally change his being at the office. But I think that's what I was getting at with him being a good leader, is just that I know it's in him.
Yeah, I did not get it that way. Like I agree with you. He has the building blocks to be a great leader. But like, it seems like his staff likes him because he doesn't challenge them. He doesn't make them uncomfortable. He doesn't do the things that you have to do. Like great leadership to me is, and like, again, like we always say, ask me how I know, right? There was periods of my ownership, especially early on, where this guy's like first however many years of ownership was very much like my first 4 months. It's just like expanded out maybe 10 times longer. But it's just that idea that like, I don't want to say anything the wrong way. I just want everybody to like me. I'll let stuff go under the rug. They're not going to diagnose perio. That's fine. She's a nice person. So it's like all this stuff that, you're just not challenging your team or yourself as a leader. So it's easy to look good. I'm making a lot of money. I'm not asking anybody of anything. Like, of course you look fine. But the reality is you're not asking. Like for me, great leadership is when you ask your team to do something that is, you challenge them, you're asking them to do a lot. They do it well, happily, without your constant micromanaging. Like to me, that's great leadership, and your culture is fantastic. Like anything short of that is just you're not challenging your team enough, or they're not responding to the way you challenge them. But
yeah, I mean, he's playing in the minor leagues and not allowing himself to get up to the majors where there's more eyeballs on him. There's more at stake. There's also greater prize at the end of it too, if he goes all out and wins.
But like this is like every dental practice owner. Like people wonder, this is what bothers me, where they'll say like, okay, I'm going to come on the show and get my metrics, and then I'll take those metrics back to the practice. Okay, well, what if those metrics inform you to do something uncomfortable? What are you going to do? Because that's where mindset comes in. Is okay, well, I have to talk to my hygienist about fluoride and perio. That's not comfortable. She's not going to like it. What do you do? And it's, I need to diagnose better. That's a lot of conversations with patients that are uncomfortable. Like I always say, the metrics are the way they are for a reason. They're not like, oh, let me just tweak this and it'll be fixed. A lot of this stuff is not easy to tweak. It's a lot of, what it really informs us about is mindset. And, it's that constant like fear of failure challenges. Like all of these things keep coming through in all of these different parts of his practice.
Yeah, and he's going to need someone to reflect that to him going forward, or he can easily fall into the comfort zone how he's always been operating. He was coming on here, like I said, looking for a metric to tell him that what he already wanted to do, he was ready for, quote unquote. I don't think he got that. So I hope going forward, he just kind of is able to use his metric tracking software as just a way to kind of take some more chances in his practice and get it to the path that he really wants it to get on.
No, without a doubt. I mean, this guy needs a coach. I mean, he needs somebody his mindset needs to grow and change and evolve with his vision. And right now, his mindset is exactly coinciding to where his practice is today. And he has this vision for where he wants it to be tomorrow, but his mindset is not corresponding. So he's not going to get there without changing that mindset. You can almost guarantee it, because he needs to have the mindset for where he's going.
For sure.
Like, I think that a lot of times when you have a healthy mindset, you look nuts to some people. Like, that's kind of like, that's how I know somebody.
Nuts to me more than a couple of times. So just to let you know.
You talking to me? Like, I've looked nuts, like George?
Yes, like George.
Yeah,
like,
and that's
how is he adding
love
a fourth? It's been like 6 months.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, but then when you're entrenched in it, you're so focused on vision that it's the decision that you have to do. And it looks crazy to everybody. And it is probably a little nuts. But if it gets me to my vision, then I'm doing it.
I mean, that's how I love to operate. Like, if someone else on the outside is saying, hey, that's probably not the right choice or not the right time, I know I'm making the right choice and it's the right time. Like, that's just kind of how I operate.
Yeah. And for me, like, that fourth hygienist, that's a metrics-based decision, right? Like, at the time, booking out new patients 4 weeks, our recall current percentage was a little bit lower. I knew I had some overdue recall to put in there, and it, so whether or not it pans out for you the way you want it to, how was the decision in line with your vision? Was it informed, and was it made rationally? And if you could say all of those things, then I think that's a good decision regardless of the result.
Yeah. And I think, Jim, we'll kind of close on this, is that uncommon success only comes with an uncommon appetite for risk. If you're able to open yourself up to a lot of risk, you can open yourself up to unusual success, like being a practice owner in your first year and getting the 4 hygienist. Like, that only came with, being okay with that. And takes a special kind of person to do so.
Yeah. So Matt always calls that my special sauce. And I appreciate that, because I think it took him recognizing that in me, and to fully embrace what makes me special and unique. And currently, it is my ability to just take insane amounts of risk that you guys, if I were to lay out like all the risks that I've taken, I think there's about 30 decisions that nobody else would make, in rapid succession. And it just, that's the way I operate. And, it's painful sometimes and it makes it challenging, but I couldn't do it any other way.
Yeah. I mean, it shows through with a couple of your gray hairs. I'm even seeing them now. So it's, it does take a little bit of a toll, but
oh yeah, it does.
It's worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah. For me, like, I keep using the mural analogy, and I've used it on the show before. I feel like I'm painting my mural, and until I'm done, nobody will judge it, and I'm not going to take my time. That's just who I am.
Love it. All right, George, that was fun. We'll see you guys next week on another episode.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.